Hi guys, how are you doing? It's Elaine Bintz, Wellness Coach. It is May of 2023. I hope everybody is having a great spring and I am very much looking forward to the summer. So as the school year comes to an end and we're wrapping up and looking forward to more summertime freedom, time outside, hopefully more consistent weather, more consistent warmer days in a row. Today's topic could not have come at a better time. So our private Facebook group, Grow with Elaine, one of our members, George, gave me this topic idea. The topic is understanding subconscious addiction triggers to foods like carbs, alcohol, sugar. We can even extend this out to substances or tobacco, things like that. So understanding subconscious triggers and then how they affect you in relation to your health or your daily decisions, your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health, and then how to find solutions to connect those triggers to healthier decisions or healthier habits. So I'll be honest with you guys, when I first learned about this topic, I had to kind of sit back and think a little bit. And then I did a little bit of research, and although I have degrees in exercise physiology and dietetics, I really needed to tap more into the psychology that I learned. So what I did is I reached out to George and we had a lengthy conversation. So thank you, George. I'm going to do my best to explain this topic to our group. So unbeknownst to us, a lot of triggers happen when we're around certain people or certain activities. So how do you know if your brain is pairing some sort of an activity and triggering a behavior or a decision that you're doing? So thank you, George, for your time, and I'm going to do my best to explain this topic. So first I'm going to break down subconscious triggers. So what is subconscious? So I looked that up. So I found a simple definition of subconscious, which is of or concerning part of the mind which we or one or someone is not fully aware of, which influences our actions or our feelings. So when I studied Latin, sub meant under. So maybe we are not fully aware of what's happening, maybe in the back of our mind, and then we have either a knee-jerk reaction or it's just something that we've automatically paired to a behavior. So my translation of this definition would be doing something without being 100% aware of why or how this action occurred. So for example, I'll talk to my clients and they'll walk in, come in for a session, and I'll say, hi, how are you doing? And so usually after like the pleasantries of, oh, I'm fine, they'll be warming up like on the treadmill or the bike, and then we'll talk and say, well, how are you really feeling? Because in the first 5 minutes of our session, how I'm feeling fine could be, I got 2 hours of sleep, I'm just getting through the day. I need a lower intensity workout, or we need to make this a more calming or healing session today. Or I'm feeling fine could mean I slept like a champ, I feel great, yesterday was a great day, I have a lot of energy, let's do an awesome interval workout, for example. I want to get into what is actually happening in the mind, where we're going to use what's happening to our advantage, and then pair what you're thinking with an activity that makes sense for you. So we're not going to do this hard and heavy interval workout if you're going on 2 or 3 hours of sleep. That doesn't make sense. So as we discuss upcoming decisions that need to be made, we also mentally map what has been previous experience, maybe subconsciously things we have done, and then decisions we have made. So for example, if you are sleep deprived, say you are for whatever reason getting like less than 4 hours of sleep a night, one, that increases your resting heart rate. So you might feel like you're having palpitations, which you might be, and if you are, definitely call 911. But your resting heart rate will be elevated. Your heart will actually beat faster at rest if you are sleep deprived, if you're not getting enough sleep. And there's other things that can cause that symptom as well. But then also, what is a trigger? So what's the other part? So it takes a little bit of digging and thinking to actually think about what are these things. And some people like to sit back and journal, and like sit and write and get their thoughts out on paper. And that slow, sometimes arduous process of writing could actually force your brain to slow down and take the time to just get your thoughts on paper. So the other part of the subconscious triggers is what is a trigger? So then I looked up this definition as well. It's something that causes an event or a situation to happen or to exist. So in the health and fitness realm, had a stressful day might be paired with overeating at dinner. Or if you would normally have one glass of wine, you might go for 2 or 3 to have a consumption, a choice that would lower your stress level. So usually there's something that causes an event to happen. So say, for example, psychological shortcuts. You go to the movies, you get popcorn. Maybe this is a habit you and your family have. And something you're noticing when you leave after you go see the movie, you're really dehydrated. Maybe you're craving more salty or fatty foods. So you can go back and reflect and think about, what is the behavior? What is the subconscious thing happening in my brain? And then what triggers me to make that decision? So maybe, say your family goes to the movies on a regular basis, you might want to pair going to the movies with either not having the popcorn, if you're close to extinction or getting rid of a habit, if that's something you want to get rid of, or having less, or maybe changing where you sit in relation to the person who would like hold the bucket. Or if your family normally gets 2 things of popcorn, maybe you just share 1. So you reduce the likelihood of you having that behavior that's paired with the trigger of going to the movies. Because if you have a family of, say, 3 or 4, you might eat less because you're sharing 1 bucket. So that's just an example of like a psychological shortcut that our brain sometimes does. So say, for example, you have a habit of eating at a particular time of the day. So oftentimes people will pair an activity with eating. So say, for example, I say, talk to somebody, hi, how are you doing? Tell me more about what you ate for dinner last night. So oftentimes people don't remember that. And then they have to take a minute, unless they're food logging or they're recording somewhere, like if they're using an app like MyFitPal or Weight Watchers or something, they might not actually have a record of it. So it might take them a minute to think. And oftentimes people will pair eating with an activity like watching TV or playing on their phone or watching Netflix or whatever you use for entertainment. So eating can actually become the mindless activity that is occurring as you've paired the eating with another activity. So your first step, so how can you use this information to your advantage, is to identify what are your triggers. So if there is a habit you would like to adjust or modify or improve upon, whether it's communicating with someone you care about, your spouse, your child, your partner, your coworker, you have to identify subconsciously what is happening in the moment that causes your behavior, whether it's communicating, eating something. Maybe you've packed your gym bag, you're all ready to go. The alarm goes off at 5 a.m. For whatever reason, you hit snooze, you don't get up. So really mapping out and thinking, what is the subconscious activity that is happening here that triggers me to maybe make the decision that does not align with the future I'm trying to build. So figuring out first, what are your triggers? And then the next step is, how can you adapt or change your behavior so that you can pair the behavior that you want with a regular trigger. So say, for example, the 5 a.m., you're getting to work out. You wake up 5 a.m., you want to hit the gym, good half hour, 45 minutes before work, whatever your calendar, your schedule would allow. So it would be important to figure out why you keep hitting snooze. So maybe this is something I definitely discuss with my clients, is maybe 5 a.m. is not the best time for you to work out. Maybe that is not the ideal time. If you look at your calendar, maybe that would logistically make sense, but maybe you're better off while you're at work. Say you've worked 4 or 5 hours and you want to have a 20-30 minute break, a mental break. Maybe you sit at a desk and you're doing a sedentary job. Maybe bringing your gym shoes and going for a 15, 20, maybe even 30-minute walk on your lunch break makes more sense, because it's more adaptable for your calendar and you don't necessarily need to drive somewhere or get changed or take another shower for the day. But choosing a behavior that you want to pair with the thought. Like, oh, I really want to exercise. How can I really get this into my calendar? And then what happens when I don't follow through on the planned activity? So sitting back and reflecting and thinking, how can you pair the healthy behavior with the subconscious thought that you have? So some other examples are like if there's a food. I've heard this from a lot of people. They're driving to and from work, they're commuting. A lot of people are back in the office certain days of the week, or maybe even 4 or 5 days a week. And then they on their commute, there's this particular restaurant that has a food or drink that's their go-to or their vice. So an easy way that you could potentially avoid that trigger is to change your commute or reduce. So say every day you get the same 500 calorie drink at Starbucks every day. So rather than saying I'm not going to have any of it and totally change your commute, you could give yourself some grace and say I'm going to have this 3 out of what would be normally 5 days a week, or 4 out of 5. So reduce one day, change your commute one day, but the other days you get to have it. And then in the progressive approach, you would slowly wean yourself to the point of maybe that became a treat. So maybe that Starbucks drink you used to get 5 days a week becomes a once a week habit, or a once every other week. So depending on if you are reaching your health and fitness goals. So the key really is to find solutions that work for you. So some of these examples I've given may not relate to your life at all, but really it's important that if you want to have healthier habits, whether it's food related, exercise, healthier even in decision making, healthier mental habits, not beating yourself up so much, maybe not having so much negative self-talk, they actually require you work on them. So you have to stop in the moment when you're doing the thing you said you wouldn't do. Say you normally eat pizza on Friday nights and you normally have 5 slices of pizza and you really only want to have 3. So when you're going to go for that 4th piece of pizza, if you can in the moment, pause and think about why. Maybe switch it up for grabbing something else. Maybe grab a piece of fruit or a salad, or plan ahead by having a side dish, maybe some steamed broccoli or something, or even a frozen bag of those like steamable vegetables, so that when you would normally go to do the behavior that you're trying to adapt or change, you have an alternative to still satisfy your hunger, but maybe not go for that 4th or 5th slice of pizza on Friday night. So this actual topic, subconscious triggers, and then resulting in unhealthy or not very good habit that does not align with what you want for your future, you can adapt this to anything. You can adapt this to business, relationships, habits that you have. If you have a mentor or a sibling, they can help you to identify, to help you to become aware of what you normally do. And then the other key is to be vulnerable enough for their feedback, to listen to them. And if this is the person you trust, it's in your life, and you've asked him and you said, hey, when I do X, Y, Z, how does that come across? Or how can you help me change my behavior? Because most people, their behavior is not going to change without support or accountability. And oftentimes you're not going to just automatically change your behavior with one try. Usually it's going to take like 4 or 5 tries to change what is the intended behavior. And it's not going to work 100% all the time. There's an evolution of behavior change that oftentimes people relapse, and they have to go back to the identifying what's happening, planning an action that is going to be helpful to get to the healthier behavior, and then go back into trying that activity. So most of my coaching work is helping clients discover where they are today, what they want to change, and then progressive steps in their everyday living to get to where they want to be. Because the whole purpose would be to have a healthy lifestyle overall. So the goal is not necessarily to have a 6-pack, and depending on your age and pregnancy and things like that, that might never be a real future, in your personal genetics in your life. So it's important to help you make decisions that are going to align with the future that you want. So I encourage you to think about this topic. Think about if you do have any subconscious triggers. We all have them. I have them. And if you have a counselor or you have a trusted person you can talk to and say, hey, this is one habit I want to change. Will you help me with it? And then put the work into changing it in your everyday life. So again, this is Elaine Bintz, Wellness Coach. I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day. Bye.